Imagine a candle that never goes out, yet somehow never warms the room. It burns all day, steady flame, steady wax. Yet the air stays cold, the shadows stay thick, and you keep wondering what's wrong with you. You slept, you ate, you did what you were supposed to do. And still, by midday, your body feels like it's made of wet sand. Your mind is noisy, your will is thin, and the smallest problem feels heavier than it should. Most people blame the candle. They blame their body, their schedule, their age, their lack of motivation. They argue with themselves, bargain with themselves, punish themselves. They try to push through, and for a while it works, until it doesn't. Then the same shame returns, like a bird that knows exactly where your window is. But there is another explanation, quieter and far more accurate. The flame is not the problem. The room is leaking. That's the first secret hidden inside the old image of Thoth. Not as a mascot for wisdom, not as a postcard god of knowledge, but as the scribe who sees what others refuse to record. Thoth is not impressed by what you intend. He watches what you spend. He watches what you waste. He watches where your attention goes when no one is judging you. And if you could see your energy the way a scribe sees ink, every stroke, every smear, every spill, you would stop calling yourself lazy. Because most of your power is not being used. It is being siphoned, not by a person, not by fate, not by bad luck. It is being siphoned by invisible drains you learn to accept as normal because everyone else is leaking too. The first drain is the simplest, attention scattered into fragments. Your life is not one life. It's 100 tiny rooms you step into every hour. Messages, feeds, tasks, worries, errands, plans, memories, predictions, comparisons. Each room takes a little heat. Each room asks for a small payment. And the problem is not that you enter these rooms. It's that you never fully leave them. Modern psychology has a name for this: attention residue. You switch tasks, but a part of your mind stays behind like a ghost with unfinished business. You answer one message, then walk away, but your nervous system keeps listening for the next one. You scroll for a minute, then look up and find you've been gone from your own life for half an hour. You're not resting. You're dissipating. And dissipated energy feels exactly like weakness. The second drain is unfinished loops, open tabs in a mind. There's a particular kind of tired that appears when your brain is carrying too many incomplete agreements. Not just work tasks, emotional agreements, promises you made to someone and never closed, conversations you keep rehearsing in the shower, decisions you keep postponing, apologies you keep composing, future catastrophes you keep preventing with your imagination. The mind hates an unclosed circle. It will keep circling until it either finishes or collapses. This is why you can lie on a couch for hours and still feel exhausted. The body rested. The mind kept running. And the mind is not gentle when it runs. It doesn't jog. It sprints in place. Thoth, in the old imagination, is the keeper of records. Not because he likes paperwork, but because what is unrecorded becomes a haunting. When something has no clear shape, it grows in the dark. When something is not named, it becomes a fog that follows you from room to room. You feel it as vague anxiety, as heaviness, as irritability, as that strange inner itch that makes you reach for your phone without even deciding to. If you want to understand your fatigue, stop asking, "Why am I so tired?" Ask, "What am I carrying that isn't finished?" The third drain is emotional leakage. Energy spent resisting what you feel. There's a cost to every emotion you deny. Not because the emotion is dangerous, but because suppression is labor. It takes effort to keep the lid on. It takes effort to smile when you're angry, to act calm when you're afraid, to act fine when you're hurt. And most people do it all day long, then wonder why they have nothing left at night. You can live like that, but you can't call it free. This is where mythology becomes more than decoration. In the old stories, chaos is not always a monster outside the city. Often, chaos is the unspoken inside the heart, the unadmitted fear, the bitterness you refuse to acknowledge, the grief you keep delaying because it feels inconvenient. You can postpone emotion, but you can't cancel the invoice. And the invoice is paid in energy, in shallow breathing, clenched jaw, tense shoulders, racing thoughts, restless sleep. Your body becomes a dam, and you spend your strength holding the water back. The fourth drain is self-betrayal, tiny acts of inner dishonesty. This one is subtle because it doesn't look dramatic. It looks like it's fine, I'll do it later when you know you won't. It looks like, yes, no problem, when your chest tightens and you feel the lie. It looks like agreeing to things you resent, then resenting people for asking. It looks like saying you want peace, then feeding on outrage because it feels like control. Every time you betray your own truth, you split your energy. Part of you performs, part of you protests, part of you watches, part of you judges. And the more parts you create, the more energy it takes just to be yourself. This is why some people can have very little time and still feel powerful, while others have entire days free and still feel depleted. Power is not only supply. Power is coherence. Thoth, as the scribe, is obsessed with coherence. Not because he's moralistic, but because he understands that incoherence leaks. If your words and actions don't match, you hemorrhage energy. You become two people, the one who speaks and the one who knows. And the one who knows will not stay silent forever. It will sabotage. It will procrastinate. It will numb you out. Not because it hates you, but because it refuses to fund a lie. The fifth drain is constant stimulation, mistaking intensity for aliveness. There's a kind of modern hunger that never ends. Not hunger for food, hunger for input, hunger for novelty, hunger for reaction, hunger for the little spark of something happening. And it makes sense. Your nervous system is built to orient toward new information. It is built to scan, to seek, to learn. But when that seeking becomes constant, it doesn't feel like curiosity anymore. It feels like restlessness. It feels like boredom even when you're busy. It feels like chasing a signal that disappears the moment you catch it. Stimulation can imitate energy. It can look like energy. It can even feel like energy until the moment you stop. Then you crash, and you don't understand why. Because stimulation is not power. It's a spark on borrowed fuel. Real power is different. Real power is quiet. It doesn't require an audience. It doesn't require urgency. It doesn't need drama to feel alive. It's the kind of energy that remains when nothing is happening. And that is the entire promise of this path. Unshakable energy. Not the hyped up, caffeinated, performative kind. The kind that stays with you when the world is loud. The kind you can call on when you're alone. The kind that doesn't collapse the moment someone disapproves of you. Now notice what all these drains have in common. They are not physical. They are not solved by a nap. They are drains of attention, of coherence, of inner agreement. This is why people can do every healthy thing and still feel hollow. They're repairing the candle while the room stays full of holes. So what does Thoth do first, before any practice, before any unlock, before any promises of power? He measures. He counts. He records. Not to shame you, to reveal you. Because the first step in reclaiming power is to stop living inside vague stories. I'm just tired. I'm just stressed. That's just life. Those are not explanations. They are fog machines. And fog is convenient because it hides the leaks. Thoth does not allow fog. He is the part of you that is willing to look at your day and say, this is where I bled energy. This is where I traded truth for approval. This is where I scattered attention like coins thrown into the sea. This is where I kept an open loop alive because I was afraid to close it. This is where I fed stimulation because silence felt too honest. And when you see it clearly, something surprising happens. You stop needing motivation because you realize you already have energy, more than you thought. It's just being spent on invisible expenses. There's a particular relief that comes when you finally identify the real drain. It's the relief of accuracy. The relief of realizing you're not broken. You're simply unguarded. You are funding too many things at once. You are paying for noise. You are paying for inner conflict. You are paying for unfinished business. And here is the turning point. The moment the script stops being mythology and becomes practical life. If your energy is leaking through the invisible, then your remedy must also be invisible at first. Not a huge overhaul, not a complex system that becomes another burden, not a new identity you perform for a week and abandon. Something small enough to do daily, something precise enough to measure, something simple enough that the mind cannot argue its way out of it, something that turns your attention from scattered to gathered, like ink drawn into a single line. That is where we are going. But before we do, you need to feel the seriousness of this first truth. The world will always offer you 1,000 places to spend your power. It will always offer you noise, urgency, comparison, stimulation, and endless half-finished loops. None of that will stop. So unshakable energy cannot depend on the world becoming calmer. It must be built inside the storm. It must be something you can do when you're busy, when you're emotional, when you're tired, when you don't feel spiritual, when you don't feel inspired, when your mind says, not today. Thoth's method is not a mood. It is a measure. And once you begin measuring, once you begin seeing where the leaks are, you're no longer a victim of your day. You become the keeper of your own ledger. You become someone who can reclaim power, not by force, but by precision. Because power, at its core, is not aggression. Power is what remains when you stop wasting yourself. Because power, at its core, is what remains when you stop wasting yourself. The next move is not to fight your entire day. It is to reclaim one small point inside it. One point so simple and repeatable that real life cannot talk you out of it. A scribe does not conquer a library in one sitting. He opens the scroll, steadies the hand, and writes one clean line. That is how a new ledger begins. This practice is built to be almost insultingly small. 7 measured breaths, 1 line of inscription, and 1 closing seal. Nothing more. If you make it larger, your mind will negotiate. If you make it complicated, your schedule will defeat it. Small and exact is how it survives long enough to become strong. You begin by choosing an anchor moment that already happens every day. Not a fantasy time you will create later, an existing hinge in your routine. When you sit down to start work, when you finish brushing your teeth, when you pour your first drink of the day, when you lock your door to leave, or when you lie down at night before sleep. The ritual must ride on something that already repeats. Otherwise, it depends on willpower, and willpower is exactly what's been leaking. When the anchor moment arrives, you do not announce anything. You simply pause. You let your shoulders drop, as if you're setting down an unseen bag. You let your jaw unclench. You give yourself a small pocket of stillness and treat it like a doorway. Then you measure the breath 7 times. These are not special breaths. They are ordinary breaths made conscious, and that is precisely what gives them weight. The body breathes automatically all day while the mind wanders. Here, you reverse the usual order. You let the breath lead, and you let the mind follow. Stand or sit, either is fine. The only requirement is that you are not collapsed. Upright enough for air to move, relax enough for the breath to feel like permission rather than effort. If it helps, rest one hand lightly over the lower ribs or belly, not to force anything, just to witness. On the first inhale, allow the air in without pulling it. On the exhale, let it leave without turning it into a story. Count it as 1. On the second breath, slow down by a fraction, as if you were refusing to be rushed by invisible hands. Count it as 2. By the third breath, you'll notice the mind trying to slip away, planning, checking, judging, chasing. That is not a failure. It is the moment you catch the leak in real time. Each time you notice the leaving and return to the next inhale, you are practicing the simplest kind of power, return. Let the breaths be natural in length. If you want a gentle rhythm, breathe in for a comfortable count and breathe out for the same count or slightly longer. You are not chasing depth. You are training steadiness. By the fourth and fifth breaths, the body often admits tension you didn't know you were holding. Let the exhale soften the shoulders. Let the face become plain. By the sixth breath, you may feel an urge to hurry, as if stillness is dangerous. Do not obey it. Let the breath teach your system that stillness is safe. When the seventh exhale ends, give yourself one extra heartbeat of quiet. That small silence is the hinge where scattered attention becomes gathered attention. It is the difference between I tried a technique and I entered a different state. Now comes the inscription, one line only. This is where people ruin it by adding weight. They write paragraphs. They explain themselves. They turn a clean ritual into a heavy journal. And within a week, it becomes another unfinished loop. So keep it surgical. One sentence, one stroke. If you can, use a physical notebook and pen. Ink has a strange authority. It signals to the mind that something has been set down. If you can't, a notes app works. If you can't do that, whisper the sentence and imagine it written. The method matters less than the precision. Your single line is not a wish. It is not I hope. It is not maybe. It is a command you give to your day and to your own drifting attention. Short enough to remember without strain. Specific enough that you can tell whether you honored it. Honest enough that your body does not tighten when you write it. The cleanest form is a return line. Today, I return my attention to ____. You fill the blank with one thing that matters. One, not a list. If it's a task, name it plainly. If it's a quality, name it clearly. Patience, courage, restraint, clarity. If it's a boundary, make it actionable. Today, I return my attention to speaking one honest no when I need to. If you already know the drain that stalks you, use a refusal line. Today, I refuse to feed ___. Not forever. Not perfectly. Today, you name the leak, comparison, compulsive checking, imaginary arguments, doom scrolling, and you refuse to fund it. Write the line. Then stop. Do not decorate it. Do not justify it. Read it once, slowly, as if it were written by the part of you that is tired of paying for noise. Now you seal it. Without a seal, the moment leaks back into the day. The mind treats unsealed moments as optional thoughts, and optional thoughts are cheap. A seal turns it into an event. It tells something deeper than your thinking mind. This is done. This is set. Choose one sealing act, and keep it the same for 30 days. Consistency is the language the nervous system believes. Your seal can be a simple gesture. Thumb to index finger once, like stamping wax, or a palm placed over the chest for a single calm breath, or closing the notebook with a gentle tap, as if shutting a door. If you prefer words, use a short phrase that feels final rather than dramatic. It is written, or so it stands. Perform the seal with the same quiet seriousness you use to lock your front door. Not tense seriousness. Calm seriousness. You are not trying to feel inspired. You are establishing authority. And then you move on immediately to the next real thing you are going to do. Do not linger hunting for a sensation. Some days you'll feel a subtle lift, like air entering a sealed room. Other days you'll feel nothing at all. That's fine. This is not entertainment. This is training. Because the ritual is not only the minutes at your anchor moment. The ritual is what happens later, when the day tries to fracture you and you remember the line. The moment you remember it, you have a thread to pull yourself back from dispersion. Even a 2-second return counts. Each return plugs a leak. Make it easy to succeed. Keep the notebook where your hand can't miss it. Reduce friction until the practice feels inevitable. And if you miss a day, do not punish yourself. Punishment is another drain dressed as discipline. You simply return the next day and write again. A ledger is not a courtroom. It is a record. And the record begins anew whenever you choose to measure, inscribe, and seal. 7 measure breaths. 1 line. 1 seal. Small enough for any life. Exact enough to build a power the noise cannot shake. Small enough for any life. Exact enough to build a power the noise cannot shake. And if you've done it even once, 7 measured breaths, 1 line, 1 seal, you've already tasted the first proof. You did not need a perfect mood to shift your state. You did not need a long session, an altar, a playlist, or a window of silence. You needed a measure, a sentence, and the decision to treat that sentence as real. Now we go deeper into the strange part, because the breath calms you. Yes, but breath alone does not build unshakable energy. Calm can evaporate the moment the day touches you. The mind can refragment in 10 seconds. The old loops can reopen. The same leaks can start sipping again. So why does that single line matter so much? Because language is not decoration. Language is command. In the old imagination, Thoth is the master of the written sign, the one who doesn't merely describe reality, but arranges it. Not in the childish sense of, say, a spell and coins fall from the sky, but in the more frightening and more accurate sense. What you repeatedly name becomes what you repeatedly notice, and what you repeatedly notice becomes what you repeatedly become. Your nervous system does not obey your opinions. It obeys your instructions. And most people are giving instructions all day without realizing it. Every time you say, "I can't focus," you're not reporting a fact. You're issuing a forecast. Every time you say, "I always mess things up," you're not being honest. You're being hypnotic. Every time you think, "This is going to be exhausting," you're not predicting. You're preparing the body to conserve and collapse. The sentence lands, and the system responds as if it were true. Muscles tighten. Breath shortens. Attention narrows. Energy pulls inward. That is not mysticism. That is how a human organism works. We live inside meanings. We are guided by the stories we tell, especially the ones we tell without witnesses. So when you write your one line, you're interrupting the usual unconscious script and replacing it with a deliberate one. That is why it cannot be a paragraph. Paragraphs are commentary. One line is a blade. Think about the difference between wandering in a forest and walking a trail. The forest is full of possibilities. The trail is a decision carved into the ground. You can still step off it, but it takes effort. The trail guides your feet, even when you're tired. Your one line is a trail. It doesn't force you. It makes returning easier than drifting. Psychologically, it works because it does something the mind is hungry for. It reduces ambiguity. When your inner world is ambiguous, when you have 10 intentions competing, your attention is dragged in 10 directions. Ambiguity feels like busy. It also feels like tired. The organism burns energy resolving internal competition. But when you reduce it to one clear instruction, the internal argument quiets. Not perfectly, not forever, but enough that energy stops bleeding through the cracks of indecision. This is why the line must be both simple and specific. Not, "I will be better today." That's too foggy. Your mind can't act on it. It will turn into self-judgment by lunchtime. But something like, "Today I return my attention to finishing the first page," or "Today I refuse to feed the urge to check," or "Today I speak with calm precision," gives the system a handle. It tells your attention what to do with itself when it starts to wander. And here is the deeper secret. The line is not mainly about behavior. It's about identity. You are not powered by what you want. You are powered by who you believe you are. If you believe you are scattered, you will keep proving it. If you believe you are steady, you will seek evidence of steadiness. If you believe you are someone who returns, you will return more often. Your brain is a pattern-confirming machine. It hunts evidence to make your self-story feel consistent. So when you write a line like, "Today I return," you are not only setting a task. You are declaring a role. I'm a person who returns. I'm not a person who drifts forever. I'm not a person owned by impulse. I'm a person with a center. That is a radical claim. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's testable. The day will test it immediately. And each time you return, even once, you feed that identity with proof. This is also why the line must be honest enough that your body accepts it. If you write, "Today I am unstoppable," but you don't feel it, your system will reject it. It becomes theater. The inner parts of you will roll their eyes. the spell collapses. Not because manifestation failed, but because incoherence leaks power. The body knows when language is empty. Thoth's tongue is not hype. It is precision. The line should feel like a clean door closing. No drama, no vaguing, no performance. Just a quiet authority you can live inside. And that authority is built by the sequence you've already learned. Breath, then writing, then seal. Breath first changes state. It brings you from scattered to present, from reactive to receptive. It takes the nervous system out of its default scramble and makes it capable of receiving a new instruction. Then writing fixes the instruction in form. Because thoughts are vapor. They drift. They change shape. They negotiate. But a written sentence sits there like a carved mark. It becomes an object. You can return to it. You can see it again. You can feel its simplicity. And the mind, despite all its complexity, respects what is concrete. This is why, in so many traditions, writing is treated as more serious than speaking. Speaking can be undone with a laugh. Writing feels like a commitment. You don't need to believe in anything supernatural to feel this. You already do. You feel it when you sign your name. You feel it when you read a message that cannot be unsent. Something inside you treats written words as heavier than passing thoughts. That weight is what we use. And then the seal finishes it. The seal is not magic, it is closure. It tells the brain, this loop is complete. This instruction is set. We are not debating it anymore. Without closure, the mind keeps the ritual in a half-open state, and half-open states are drains. They invite reconsideration. They invite doubt. They invite procrastination. The seal is how you prevent your own intelligence from sabotaging you. Now, there is one more layer, and it is the most Thoth-like layer of all, naming. A thing unnamed is hard to steer. When you cannot name your leak, it owns you. It hides in fog. It appears as mood, as fate, as that's just how I am. But when you name it cleanly, you reduce its mystique. You shrink it to size. You turn it from a monster into a pattern. So sometimes your one line will be about naming what steals you. Not with shame, with clarity. You might write, today, I refuse to feed the rehearsal, meaning the endless replaying of conversations that will never happen. Or, today, I return from comparison, meaning the moment you catch yourself measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. Or, today I do the next honest step, meaning you stop fantasizing about the whole mountain and take the next foothold. Notice how these lines do not fight the whole problem. They change the relationship to the problem. They give you a handle, and that handle becomes usable in real time. Because the real battle is not in the ritual minutes. The real battle is at 2:13 p.m. when you suddenly feel restless and you don't know why. The real battle is at 9:40 p.m. when you reach for stimulation because silence feels too exposed. The real battle is in the half second before you scroll, before you snap, before you avoid. In that half second, you rarely have access to complex wisdom, but you do have access to one sentence. That is why we use one line, because it is portable. It can surface like a lifeline when the tide rises. And the more you use it, the more your nervous system begins to associate it with return. It becomes a cue, a trigger, a switch. Over time, your line starts to feel less like motivation and more like jurisdiction. It's not, I hope I do this. It becomes, this is what I do. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you've trained your mind to recognize that this sentence is not casual. It is written, and here is the quiet magnificence of it. Once you begin giving your mind clean instructions, the mind stops acting like a wild marketplace. It begins acting like a devoted instrument. Not perfectly, not overnight, but noticeably. You start to feel energy return, not as excitement, but as available attention. You start to feel less dragged by impulse. You start to feel a subtle dignity in your movements, like someone who is no longer begging their own mind for permission. This is what Thoth represents at his most useful. The part of you that can shape inner reality through measured attention and precise words. The part of you that understands that your day is not only made of events, it is made of directives. And you're either living inside directives you inherited or you are writing your own. So keep the ritual small. Keep the line clean. Keep the seal consistent. Let it become ordinary. Because when something becomes ordinary, it stops depending on mood. And when it stops depending on mood, it starts becoming power. When you begin writing one clean line each day, something subtle happens beneath the surface. At first, it feels like focus. Then it starts to feel like dignity. And then, if you keep going, you notice a strange tension that has been there all along. The tension between what you say you want and what you actually live. This is where many people stop. Not because the ritual fails, but because it succeeds. It shines a steady light into the place where your energy has been leaking for years. Contradiction. You can have excellent habits and still feel drained if your inner world is divided. You can breathe, meditate, exercise, and plan, and still carry a quiet exhaustion that doesn't make sense. That exhaustion is not always from doing too much. Often it is from being two people at once. The person who declares an intention and the person who quietly does something else. In the old language, this is the moment Ma'at enters. Not as an ornament, not as a history lesson, not as a distant symbol. Ma'at is the principle that makes power possible, coherence. Truth that isn't merely spoken but embodied. Order that isn't rigid but aligned. If Thoth is the measured tone, Ma'at is the scale that proves whether your words have weight. Because a sentence can be sharp and still be a lie. Not a lie you tell others. A lie you tell your own nervous system. The kind of lie that sounds ambitious but leaves you hollow. The kind of lie that gets applause but drains you afterward. The kind of lie that keeps you busy while your soul goes hungry. And here is the difficult truth. Unshakable energy is not built by intensity. It's built by integrity. Integrity is not moral perfection. It is not purity. It is not being good. Integrity is the state of being undivided. It is the condition where your inner parts stop fighting each other. When your inner parts stop fighting, your energy returns. Because internal conflict is expensive. It burns fuel silently. It turns every decision into a debate, every action into a performance, every pause into guilt. It makes you feel as if you're always behind, always failing, always needing to fix yourself, and that constant fixing becomes another drain. Ma'at is the opposite of that. Ma'at is the moment you choose to stop funding your own fragmentation. Imagine the scale, not as a myth you have to believe, but as a model you can use. One side is your heart, your impulses, your fears, your cravings, your wounded reflexes, your private appetites. The other side is the feather, not rules, not should, but the lightness of truth. The simplicity of what you know is right for you when you're not trying to impress anyone. The scale is always operating. It operates when you promise yourself you'll rest and then punish yourself for resting. It operates when you say you want peace and then consume conflict because it gives you a temporary sense of power. It operates when you claim you want focus and then keep rewarding distraction with tiny hits of stimulation. Most people don't feel the scale until it starts to tilt. Then they call the feeling stress or burnout or anxiety. But often it's something simpler, the body reacting to the cost of living out of alignment. Because the body knows the truth before you admit it. Your chest tightens when you agree to what you don't want. Your stomach drops when you postpone what you know you must face. Your jaw clenches when you perform a version of yourself that isn't real. These are not random sensations. They are signals that the scale is tipping. So what does Ma'at ask of you in daily practice? Not grand vows. Calibration. A small, repeatable return to alignment. So the day stops stealing your strength through inner contradiction. This is why your one line cannot be only about productivity. If it becomes only a tool to squeeze more output from yourself, it will eventually fail because part of you will refuse to be exploited. Some people call that refusal laziness. It's not laziness. It's the inner self protecting itself from being used as a machine. Ma'at requires a different orientation. The line must bring you closer to truth, not farther from it. And the most practical way to do that is to add one question, quietly, privately, right before you write your line. A question you do not debate, a question you feel. What would be the truest use of my energy today? Not the most impressive, not the most urgent, not the most approved. The truest. Truth here does not mean drama. It often means something plain. Finish the one important task instead of 10 shallow tasks. Speak one honest boundary instead of swallowing resentment. Stop consuming noise that leaves you agitated. Do the next clean step that you keep avoiding. When you write from that place, the line has a different texture. It doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like relief. And relief is a form of power. Because relief means the inner parts stop arguing. They don't all become saints. They simply stop being at war. The part of you that wants comfort and the part of you that wants growth find a compromise they can both live with. The part of you that fears rejection and the part of you that craves honesty find a sentence that doesn't betray either side. That is Ma'at in action. Not suppressing desire, but aligning it. This is important because desire is not your enemy. Desire is energy. The problem is not wanting. The problem is wanting in a way that contradicts your deeper truth. Then desire becomes a leak. It pulls you toward distractions that feel good for 10 minutes and cost you 10 hours. So you don't crush desire. You clarify it. You ask, what is this desire really trying to give me? If you crave constant checking, will you try and soothe uncertainty, loneliness, fear of missing out? If you crave conflict, what are you trying to feel? Strength, control, righteousness? If you crave distraction, what are you trying to avoid? Grief, boredom, the discomfort of starting? When you name the true need beneath the desire, you can meet it cleanly. That is how leaks get plugged. You stop treating the symptom and start addressing the hunger. Now your one line becomes more than a command. It becomes a contract between your attention and your truth. And you feel the difference immediately, not as excitement, but as steadiness. Because the most exhausting life is a life where you keep leaving yourself. You leave yourself when you say yes with your mouth and no with your body. You leave yourself when you chase goals you don't respect. You leave yourself when you perform optimism while ignoring dread. You leave yourself when you pretend you don't care about what you care about, or when you pretend you do care about what you don't. Leaving yourself costs energy because it creates distance, and distance requires maintenance. You have to keep acting, keep justifying, keep holding the mask in place. Ma'at ends that maintenance by bringing you back into one piece. This is why the daily ritual is so small. It's not meant to control your whole life. It's meant to give you one point each day where you stop leaving yourself. One point where you become coherent again. One point where your nervous system learns, over and over, that truth is safe enough to live. And when truth becomes safe enough to live, your body stops bracing. Your breathing deepens naturally. Your sleep improves not because you forced it, but because the inner arguments quiet down. Your mind becomes less noisy because it no longer has to defend a contradiction. This is the hidden mechanics of unshakable energy. It's not supernatural fire. It is reclaimed fuel. Reclaim from the places you were spending it to maintain a split. You might start noticing it in simple moments. You say no once, cleanly, without over-explaining, and you feel a strange surge of calm afterward. Not adrenaline. Calm, because you didn't betray yourself. The day didn't take a bite out of you. You stayed intact. Or you stop one compulsive habit for an hour. Not with force, but with clarity, and you feel time open up like a room with windows. That open time isn't only time. It's energy that used to be trapped in the cycle. Or you do one important task with full attention, and you realize it took less time than you feared, because fear was the real drain. Fear was the fog. Clarity was the cure. This is why Ma'at matters. She makes your power lighter, not heavier. When you align with truth, you don't become rigid. You become less burdened. You stop dragging invisible chains of inner dishonesty. You stop paying interest on decisions you refuse to make. You stop paying rent to people's expectations inside your head. And then something almost regal begins to develop, a quiet self-respect, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that makes your posture straighter without trying, the kind that makes your attention feel like it belongs to you again. That self-respect is not a mood. It is the result of alignment repeated. Your ritual, 7 breaths, 1 line, 1 seal, becomes the daily act of weighing. You don't need to obsess about every moral nuance. You simply ask, is my line today coherent with my truth? Does it reduce inner conflict? Does it plug a leak rather than create a new one? If yes, write it, seal it, live it, because Ma'at is not asking you to be perfect. She is asking you to stop living divided. And the moment you stop living divided, your energy stops trembling. It becomes stable. It becomes yours. Once you begin to measure your breath, write your line, and seal it with quiet seriousness, you will discover something that surprises almost everyone. The ritual does not simply make you calmer. It makes you visible to yourself. And when you become visible, the old patterns do not politely step aside. They step forward. This is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It is the sign you have stopped feeding the fog. For a long time, the leaks were familiar. They were background noise. They were habits you could half ignore and still call your day normal. But the moment you create one daily point of coherence, one daily point where you refuse to scatter, your inner system registers a change. Something in you recognizes the old economy is being threatened, and anything that has lived off your attention will try to reclaim it. In mythic language, this is where a pep appears, not as a cartoon serpent slithering across a desert, but as the principle of counterforce, the pull back into unconsciousness, the tug toward confusion, the seduction of not today, the sudden flare of restlessness, the irrational urge to sabotage what is actually good for you. A pep is not only fear. A pep is also familiarity. The mind often prefers a familiar pain to an unfamiliar freedom, not because it loves suffering, but because it knows how to navigate what it already understands. When you begin to gather power, you step into a new territory. And new territory makes the nervous system vigilant. Vigilance feels like discomfort. Discomfort makes you reach for the old pattern that promises relief. This is why resistance doesn't always feel like a dramatic battle. It often feels like a small internal yawn, a subtle dismissal, a vague boredom, a sudden preference for anything else. And it has many faces. Sometimes it arrives as doubt. This is too simple. It can't matter. Your mind will present that thought as intelligence. It will dress it in sophistication. It will say, surely real change requires something bigger. But underneath that doubt is a quieter fear. If something this small works, then you lose your excuses. If 7 breaths and 1 sentence can shift you, then you can no longer pretend you're powerless. Other times it arrives as numbness. You do the ritual and you feel nothing. Your mind says, see, useless. But numbness is not proof of failure. Numbness is often a defense that has been active for years. It's the system saying, we don't trust new safety yet. The nervous system does not always open immediately just because you offer it stillness. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches. And the watching can feel empty. That is not emptiness. That is caution. Sometimes resistance arrives as urgency. The moment you sit down to do your 7 breaths, the mind suddenly remembers 10 important things. It tells you you're late. It tells you you can't spare the time. It tells you the ritual is indulgent. Notice the trick. It never says, I don't want you to be coherent. It says, be responsible. And it uses responsibility as a weapon against your center. Sometimes it arrives as perfectionism. You miss a day and the mind says, you ruined it. Or you write a line that wasn't quite right, and the mind says, this doesn't count. Perfectionism is a brilliant form of sabotage because it pretends to care about excellence while it quietly blocks consistency. And consistency is the only thing that matters here. Sometimes it arrives as obsession. You start doing the practice, and you want it to feel powerful every time. You start checking your mood, checking your energy, checking whether you're doing it right. You turn the ritual into a performance review. Then the ritual becomes another leak because your attention is now spent monitoring yourself instead of returning to yourself. And sometimes the most honest resistance arrives as grief. You sit to breathe, and suddenly you feel a wave you weren't expecting. Sadness, loneliness, regret, a quiet ache you have outrun for years with busyness and noise. Your mind will try to label it as bad and push it away. But often, this is the first real sign of healing. When you stop scattering, the deeper emotions finally have a chance to surface. Not to drown you, just to be seen. So what do you do when a pep strikes? You do not fight a serpent in the dark with bare hands. You bring light. You bring a rule. You bring a simple response that is stronger than the moment. This is where the ritual proves it was designed by a scribe's logic rather than a motivational fantasy. You already have a measure, a line, and a seal. When resistance appears, you apply the same structure, but in miniature, right inside the day. First, you name what is happening in plain language. Not a story, not a diagnosis. A simple label. This is doubt. This is urgency. This is perfectionism. This is numbness. This is the pull to check. This is the rehearsal. When you name it, you reduce its spell. Because most spells work best when they remain unnamed. In psychology, this is sometimes called affect labeling, and it has a real effect. Naming an emotional state can reduce its intensity and increase regulation. But you don't need jargon to use it. You only need honesty. Then you take one measured breath, not 7, just one, and you let it be a return. Not a dramatic inhale, just a breath that says, I am here. Then you recall your line. Not the whole ritual, just the line. The line is your anchor in the storm. It is your jurisdiction. It is what you chose when you are not being dragged by impulse. You bring it back like a compass. This can happen in 5 seconds in a hallway. It can happen in the middle of a conversation. It can happen with your hand on a doorknob. This is the point. The ritual is not a separate spiritual hobby. It is a device for recall. And now comes the crucial part, the part most people misunderstand. You do not demand that the resistance vanish. You demand only that you return once. A pep is ancient. The old patterns are rehearsed. Some of them are woven into your identity. They will not dissolve because you glare at them. They dissolve because you stop paying them one moment at a time. So instead of saying, I must never check again, you say, not now. Instead of saying, I must feel calm, you say, I return. Instead of saying, I must be perfect, you say, I continue. Instead of saying, I must fix my whole life, you say, one honest step. This is how you turn resistance into training. Not by crushing it, but by using it as a cue to practice return. And return is the muscle that builds unshakable energy. Because what shakes most people is not the size of their problems. It's the speed at which they abandon themselves when pressure rises. They abandon themselves into panic, into distraction, into anger, into avoidance, into people-pleasing, into compulsive coping. Then they wonder why they feel hollow. They've been evacuating their own center all day. Your practice is the opposite. It is a daily and hourly rehearsal of staying. Now let's take the most common shadow tests and feel how they transform when you meet them correctly. That will tell you the ritual is too small. Meet it with the simplest proof. Do the next breath and the next line. Doubt argues in the abstract. Return wins in the concrete. You do not debate with doubt. You demonstrate to your own system that you can act without permission. Urgency will tell you you don't have time. Meet it with 5 seconds. That is the insult and the medicine. If you truly cannot spare 5 seconds, then your life is not busy. It is unmanaged. But the mind loves to pretend that pausing is dangerous. Prove it wrong with one breath. Let the breath be your rebellion against the false emergency. Perfectionism will tell you one missed day ruins everything. Meet it with the scribe's attitude. The ledger continues. You write today's line. You seal it. You refuse the drama. The ritual is not a fragile vase. It is a tool. A tool is not offended when you pick it up again. Numbness will tell you nothing is happening. Meet it with patience. Numbness is often a frozen river. It does not melt because you demand it. It melts because you build consistent warmth at the edges. Let the ritual be warmth, not force. If you feel nothing, you still measure. You still write. You still seal. You do not require emotion as proof. You require practice. Obsessive self-monitoring will tell you to check your progress. Meet it with the same principle you use against leaks. Stop spending attention on unnecessary accounting. The only metric that matters is return. Did you return today? Good. Did you return once more? Better. That's it. Anything else is vanity wearing a lab coat. And the most tender test, grief, asks for a different response. When grief rises during your breathing, do not rush to label it as a problem. Let it be present without analysis. Let it be held by the breath. Your ritual is not only about power in the aggressive sense. It is about power in the sacred sense. The capacity to stay present with reality without fleeing. If your system begins releasing what it has carried, that is not weakness. That is the end of inner censorship. That is a leak being plugged at the root. Now here is the deeper psychological truth that makes all of this coherent. The old patterns are not evil. They were once solutions. Compulsive checking was a solution to uncertainty. People-pleasing was a solution to conflict. Overthinking was a solution to vulnerability. Numbing was a solution to pain. Anger was a solution to helplessness. These patterns were attempts to protect you. So when you meet them with hatred, you intensify the war inside. And war inside always drains energy. But when you meet them with respect, clear-eyed respect, not indulgence, you can retire them without creating a civil war in your own mind. This is why the mythic frame matters. A pep is not only an enemy to slay. A pep is a force to navigate. The sunbark does not win because it becomes furious. It wins because it stays on course. It keeps returning to the path of light. It does not negotiate with the darkness. It continues the journey. Your daily practice is your sunbark. And the shadow tests are not punishments. They're the arena where your practice becomes real. Because any calm you feel in a quiet moment is easy. The real question is, can you return when you are provoked? Can you return when you are tempted? Can you return when you are tired? Can you return when the old story says, this is who you are? If you can return once, you have already changed the story. A single return is small. It is also enormous, because it is the moment you prove you are not only a bundle of reflexes. You are an author. You are a scribe of your own attention. You are someone who can inscribe a directive and live it, even when the old serpent coils and whispers. So expect the counterspell. Welcome it in a strange way, not because you enjoy discomfort, but because it means the ritual has touched the real wiring. It means the old economy is being challenged. It means you're no longer leaking invisibly. And when resistance comes, do what a master does. Name it, breathe once, remember the line, return. Not perfectly, not forever, now. So you expect the counterspell, and when it comes you name it, take one measured breath, remember your line, and return. That one movement, return, becomes the hinge your entire month will turn on. Because unshakable energy is not a mood you stumble into. It is a pattern you install day after day until your nervous system treats your center as home. Now we build the arc 30 days is not a magic number, but it is long enough for a new reflex to take root and short enough that your mind can't hide behind someday. The aim is simple. Make the ritual so ordinary that even a stormy day can't erase it. Then let the ordinary become formidable. On day 1, the only victory is doing it. 7 breaths, 1 line, 1 seal, nothing else. Your mind will want to judge the quality, the feeling, the depth. Ignore it. A scribe doesn't admire the first mark on a blank page. He makes the mark and continues. Days 2 through 7 are about friction. Your task is not mystical. It is logistical. Put the notebook where your hand naturally reaches. Choose an anchor moment you can realistically keep. Reduce the steps until the ritual feels inevitable. If you miss a day in this first week, treat it as data, not a sin. Something in your system did not trust the new pattern yet. Fine. Adjust the anchor, adjust the placement, and write again. This is you closing the first leak. Inconsistency disguised as personality. In this first week, keep the line extremely clean. Not ambitious, not heroic. Clean enough that you can honor it even on a messy day. Today, I return my attention to the next honest step. Today, I refuse to feed the urge to check. Today, I speak with calm precision. The point is not to conquer life. The point is to practice jurisdiction over attention. Then the second week begins and something changes. The ritual starts to feel familiar, and familiarity brings a new temptation. Autopilot. You'll catch yourself doing the breaths while thinking about other things. You'll write the line like you're paying a toll. That is the moment you sharpen, not expand. In days 8 through 14, you keep the ritual the same size, but you upgrade one thing: sincerity. Before you write, you ask one quiet question: what would be the truest use of my energy today? And you wait for the first honest answer, not the prettiest one. Then you write your line as if it were a contract with yourself. Read it once, seal it, and go. Here is the subtle escalation of week 2. You add one deliberate return inside the day. Only one. Choose a time that already exists. Before lunch, after a meeting, when you sit in your car, when you wash your hands. And in that moment, you take one breath and you remember the line. No writing, no ceremony, no extra minutes. One breath, one recall. This turns the ritual from a morning ornament into a living thread. By the end of week 2, you will notice something like quiet authority. You won't always feel energized, but you'll feel less owned. The day can still be hard, but it doesn't scatter you as easily. That is the beginning of unshakable energy. Not permanent calm, but faster return. Week 3 is where Ma'at's scale becomes non-negotiable, because now the ritual is steady enough to reveal the deeper leak. You can't command energy while living in contradiction. If your line says one thing and your actions say another, the body will start resisting again, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. So days 15 through 21 are about alignment. Each morning, your one line must satisfy one requirement. It must reduce inner conflict. If it makes you tense, it's too dishonest or too grand. If it makes you feel trapped, it's too punitive. If it makes you feel secretly relieved, you're close to truth. In this week, you also perform one small act that proves your line is real. Not a grand achievement, a proof. If your line is about attention, you do 10 minutes of undistracted work before you let yourself wander. If your line is about refusing the urge to check, you delay checking once, just once, and let that delay be your victory. If your line is about honesty, you speak one clear sentence you've been diluting. This matters because you're teaching your nervous system that your words have consequences. And notice what happens when the line becomes law. The inner arguing softens. The parts of you that sabotage begin to cooperate because they can finally trust you. They no longer need to pull the emergency brake to stop you from betraying yourself. Week 4 is the ascension, but it is not fireworks. It is depth. Days 22 through 30 are about protecting the center under pressure. This is where the world tests you more sharply, or perhaps you simply notice the tests more clearly. Either way, your practice becomes less about gaining energy and more about keeping it. You do this by adopting one guiding principle for the final week: minimum and continuity. Even on the worst day, you do the smallest version. If you can't do 7 breaths, do 3. If you can't write a line, whisper it. If you can't seal with a gesture, close your eyes and imagine the seal. The only rule is that you do not let the chain break, because the chain is the spell. At the same time, you refine the line into a micro-vow. A vow is not a promise of perfection. It is a declaration of direction. It should be short enough to remember in conflict. I return before I react. I choose the next clean step. I do not fund the leak. You write it, you seal it, and then you watch for the moment it matters most, when you are tempted to abandon yourself. This is where unshakable energy becomes visible. Not when everything goes well, but when something goes wrong and you still remain intact. You feel anger rise, and you return before you speak. You feel panic rise, and you return before you spiral. You feel the urge to numb, and you return before you escape. The return does not erase emotion. It prevents possession. By day 30, your life may look similar on the outside. You may still have the same workload, the same responsibilities, the same human complexities. But inside, the architecture changes. You have a center you can reach on demand. You have a sentence that guides your attention like a compass. You have practiced alignment until your body trusts your words. You have met resistance until resistance has become a cue for return. And that is the true seal of the month. Not that you become endlessly productive, not that you float above problems, but that you stop bleeding power into fog. You stop paying for contradictions. You stop scattering attention as if it were endless. You become deliberate. Now, here is the quiet thread you carry beyond the 30 days, the one that keeps the practice from becoming another abandoned phase. Once a week, choose a day that feels natural. You read the last 7 lines you wrote. Just those 7. You don't analyze them. You simply read them and notice the pattern of your returns. This keeps the scribe awake. It keeps you honest about where you leak and where you gather. And when a new season comes, when life changes, when stress rises, you don't search for a new technique. You return to the measure. 7 breaths, 1 line, 1 seal, the same small doorway that has been training you all along. Because unshakable energy is not built by adding more. It is built by subtracting what drains you, then consecrating what remains. So when you wake tomorrow, you don't need to be inspired. You only need to measure. And when you measure, you become the keeper of your own power. Let your imagination do something gentle now. Not dramatic, not mystical, just gentle. Picture the anchor moment you chose, the exact place in your day where you will pause. See it clearly, the light in the room, the feel of the chair, the ordinary sounds around you. Notice how ordinary it is. That ordinariness is the point. Power that depends on special conditions is fragile. Power built in ordinary moments becomes yours. Now feel 7 breaths moving through you, slow and unforced. With each exhale, picture something small leaving. 1 fragment of worry, 1 sharp edge of urgency, 1 unnecessary argument you've been carrying in your head. You're not trying to empty the mind. You're simply creating space where truth can stand. Then see your hand write 1 clean line. Not a speech, not an essay. 1 sentence that tells your attention where to return. Let it be simple enough to live. Let it be honest enough to feel relief. Read it once, as if you're hearing your own voice without judgment. Then seal it. 1 quiet gesture, 1 calm closing like shutting a door that no longer needs to be guarded. And finally, imagine stepping back into your day with that line in your pocket. Not as pressure, but as a compass. When the old pull arrives, and it will, you don't fight it with anger. You name it. You take 1 breath. You return. That is all. And that is everything. If you want 1 final image to carry, let it be this. A small lamp inside your chest that stays lit even when the weather changes. You don't protect it by panicking. You protect it by closing the windows where the wind used to enter. Keep it small. Keep it exact. Keep it kind. Over time, you'll notice the room is warmer. Not because the candle changed, but because the leaks closed. If you stayed with me to the end, then you're not looking for another idea. You're looking for a decision you can live inside. So let's seal this the way Thoth would, with 1 clear line, no drama, no negotiation. In the comments, right? I return. It is written. Let that be your inscription, your proof that you're done leaking power into noise, and that from this moment forward, your attention belongs to you.